Hello, welcome back. I guess welcome back to me too. It's been a very long time. I'm back. So today I'm covering Armigers of Imperial Knights, trying to work out which one's the best and maybe why and who we want to run. So we have three Armigers, the Hellverin, the Warglaive, and the Moirax. Our army rule, so a few things to take into consideration, is we have lay low the Tyrant. Absolutely, you're taking lay low the Tyrant over anything else. Having a hit and a wound reroll on every model in the shoot and fight phase is pretty big. Reclaim the Realm just can't compete for the Armigers. With Armigers, you've got a few things to consider. Bondsman is a rule where Parental Bigger Knight can give our little guys a little buff. Big variety of rules and effects you can get. The problem is you're paying quite a hefty cost for the Parental Knights, and some of them aren't too great. Another thing we can consider is there's a class of knights called the Dominers, the really big guys. They offer Ion Aegis, which is a big bubble shield for the Armigers that get cover when they're nearby. I like to run these big dudes like maybe one arm on the corner of the building or on a ruin, and I can run my Armigers around them, behind them. They're still getting cover, but they're getting up to the middle of the board where they need to go. So with Bondsman abilities from the big boys, you've got the Index Knights and you've got the Forge-Bound Knights. Index, a few good options in here. You've got the Paladin, which gives a model lethal hits and lance. Pretty good on the Warglaive, which is a melee charging kind of melted variant. Then there's Errant's Duty. I like this one a lot because Knight Errants are pretty cheap. It gives an Armiger reroll advanced rolls and it gives its ranged weapons assault. Really good on the Warglaive. Gallant's Duty, not as much because I feel like a lot of other knights do the Gallant's job a lot better. But his Bondsman is you're giving reroll charges, and whenever you make a melee attack, you can reroll the hit. Warden's Duty gives a Armiger -1 damage. It's pretty good, makes them survive a lot longer than they should. Only downside is the Warden itself is only good into like light infantry with a minigun and the way he works. Crusader gives an Armiger +1 to hit on range. The Crusader is pretty decent at shooting. That's all he does is lots of guns. So many guns. He used to be really good in 9th edition. He is a little bit outclassed now and there's a lot of hard targets running around which he doesn't deal too well. Mentor is utterly poop. No one runs it. Into the Forge-Bound ones, Lance's Duty gives a Armiger advance and charge. Pretty good on the Moirax or the Warglaive, melee focused. Castigator is actually pretty fun on the Hellravens, giving them sustained hits of 1 and improved AP. It makes their shooting pretty lethal, and you kind of stack this buff with a few other things. Acheron's Duty is really bad, forcing Battle Shocks tests, plus Acheron Knight itself is really bad. Atropos is strong if you're building a list to fight a certain player, which you probably shouldn't do. It gives an Armiger full hit and wound rerolls into Titanic or Towering models. It's a pretty dog move. Megara in the Strix ignores cover, which is pretty good in 10th edition because cover's everywhere. Only downside is those knights aren't the best themselves. So you've got the Hellraven, the Warglaive, and the Moirax. They're the three variants. They come in 140, 150, and 160 points respectively. They have the exact same stat line. We're all 12-inch move, T10, 3 up save, 12 wounds, 7 leadership check, and 8 OC, with a 5 up invuln on range only. When it comes to Armigers, the amount of wounds you're getting for what you're paying is actually pretty decent. Take the middle one, for example, the Warglaive. 12.5 points gets you 1 wound, but on a T10 body, that's got some pretty scary stat lines, like your army re-rolling abilities. Currently, our only detachment is a Feel No Pain. Hey, it's okay. It's not the strongest thing in the world, but it's just good. So breaking them down, a few things we need to know. Squire's Duty is a stratagem that only cares about Armigers, really. So you pick 2 more Armigers, and then you pick an enemy target they could target. Until the end of turn, anytime you shoot or resolve an attack against that target, improve your strength and AP. This is really relevant to the Armigers because it feels like their weapons are designed in a way that when you use Squire's Duty, you tick over a threshold or like a breakpoint, and you're going from winning on a 4 to a 3, you're improving your odds. And if you're honored, so you've killed the enemy warlord, you do extra damage. I don't count on that bit all the time, but it's nice to have it. And Tank Shock did change, and it does help a couple of Armigers out here. We'll cover that a little bit later on. So the Hellraven first. This is the kind of backfield objective holder, does long range damage. He's a bit cheaper, but he's threatening from a distance. He has 2 autocannons, which are 4 shots apiece, so 8. You can split fire. Always hitting on 3s, Hero Knights. Strength 9, AP 1, flat 3 damage. It's a weird stat line, but it punishes people for failing the save check. When he's on the home or objective, he's got anti-fire 2, which is kind of helpful. Fly's kind of a disadvantage now to have. Take Tau, for example, half of the Codex flies. So if this dude's in his backfield, you just get to have anti-fire constantly. You can pick to have a melter gun or a stubber on the roof, like a little heavy bolter kind of thing. I am guessing you take the heavy stubber on this one because you're a long range shooting profile anyway. If you take the melter, it probably doesn't get to shoot anything. So at the bottom, I've got a ratio of number of hits going into wounds, successful wounds, into a generalist target. We're not doing the save or the damage here, it's just working out the wounds. For example, like autocannon has 8 shots, we're not counting if I reroll or anything, but you can guess on average 4.5 of those will wound into the guardsman. The stubber with rapid fire 3, you're going to get about 2.7 of them into the guardsman. Of course, it can vary. I've also done it as a percentage to make it easier. So with the Hellraven, clearly strength 9 weapon, really good into the Terminators, Marines, Chaff model, stuff like that, where you're getting that wounding on 3, maybe wounding on 2s. When you're shooting into light transports like Rhinos and Chimeras, it's still pretty good. About a third of them will wound the target, but you're relying on your opponent not saving it to get the damage in. Though, Squire's duty does make the Hellraven a lot stronger. Making his main gun strength 10 AP2 is pretty good because the cover thing in 10th edition is everywhere. So strength 10 wins light transports on 3s now. It does jump him up a bracket, which is pretty helpful. And if you do have the improved damage, flat 4 damage on anti-air guns is actually kind of filthy. The Warglaive is definitely a favourite for a lot of people. Middle child, he does a lot of things, and the army re-rolling ability is really strong on him. So you've got a thermal spear with 2 shots at 24-inch range, Melter 4, which is filthy. It is really strong. Strength 12, AP 4, just D6 damage, but hopefully you get that Melter 4. You can also have a stubber or melter gun on the roof here. You are probably taking the melter gun because he's a close range brawler, because you're going to be within that 12 inches and you want to do charging. He's also got a pretty decent melee profile. I forgot to mention the Hellraven back then. He can kick things, that's about it, it's not very good. But Tank Shock works great with him now because Tank Shock's off your toughness, not your weapon profile. With the Warglaive, Tank Shock didn't change for him because his strength was already 10. You've got 4 attacks at strength 10, AP3, 3 damage, or you can go the sweeping version. 8 attacks at strength 8, AP2, 1 damage, so Chaff Killer. With this guy though, whenever you charge a target, you get sustained hits 1 on melee. You can see his thermal spear 2 shots. He successfully wounds pretty much most things he hits. Wounding elite infantry half the time, guaranteed pretty much. Light vehicles, he's popping them on 3s. He wounds T12 vehicles on the 4, which gives you about a 30-ish% wound rate. Though again, Squire's duty, it does break that point again, where you'll be strength 13, AP5, which may be some more damage. But that would improve your odds of wounding a land raid up to about 45%. That gets pretty good. And then his melee is strength 10. If you're fighting like medium vehicles or other knights and stuff like that, other Armigers, you could Squire duty the strike profile, go up to strength 11, which with AP4 would help you beat out a lot of these medium vehicles floating around, or even Lehman Russ tanks. And then the last one, the weird one, the Moirax. This is a 4-jawed one. He's expensive in real life and on the table. You can pick different loadouts for each arm on this guy, and that's why you're paying a premium for him. And the guns feel like they're really struggling to do anything. So you've got a weird rule with him that you can use Heroic Intervention for free as a stratagem. It doesn't come up that much for me personally, but it does come up once in 3 games I find. It might help you. With the guns, you can pick any combination here. Conversion Beam Cannon. 1 shot, 24-inch. Conversion like reverse melter. If you're over 12 inches to your end of your shooting range, you get a critical on a 4, and then you often have like sustained hits or dev wounds or something. In this case, sustained hits D3. So 1 shot, strength 10, AP2, 3 damage. And if you crit on the 4 or the 6, depending how it's going, it's D3 extra shots. So you could get 4 shots off on it. The problem I find, it feels like it's competing with the Hellraven. At best, if you're running 2 of those guns, you could get 8 shots if you roll hot, like hot. The Hellraven already gets 8 shots, and you don't have to risk it. The Squire's duty stratagem gets the Hellraven up to strength 10 anyway, AP2, 3 damage. It feels like it's competing with the cheaper, easier, better ruled knight down the line. You've got the Graviton Pulsar. This is my preference, the way I run my Moiraxes. 24-inch, anti-vehicle 2 with blast, and it's strength 7, AP 1, 2 damage. So when it shoots into non-vehicle targets like Terminators and Space Marines, whatever, you're still wounding on a 3. Or you shoot into chaff, you're wounding on a 2. but it always wins a vehicle on a 2. Makes him really consistent. Not only part is his D6, so it's a bit swingy for a number of shots, and low OP, but Squire's Duty comes in pretty good here. You've got the Lightning Lock, which is like an arcing cannon. No AP, okay strength, wins infantry pretty well, but it's got high sustained hit, so you get a few shots off. That low AP is a bit of a struggle town. And then you've got the Volkite, which is like super cancer. It's all about getting dev wounds instead of sustained hits. Again, not the way I like to run it. Now, the reason why you want to even consider the Moirax is its melee. If you pick the Siege Claw, you also get the Rad Cleanser built into the Siege Claw, and it's an anti-infantry 2+ flamer. Strength 2, but you're winning on 2s into infantry. When 1 damage, no AP. Squire's Duty actually does pretty good with it, especially if you've got the extra damage, because then you're flat 2 damage. But the melee, 4 attacks, no sweep profile, strength 12, AP 3, damages D6 +2. It lets the Moirax punch up really, really hard. Again, Squire's Duty would make him strength 13, AP 4. It lets him wound the tougher things that are not a Forge rolled on 4s at the worst. It can wound Leman Russ tanks on 3s. He does pretty good. He can hunt down other knights and wound them on 3s too. That melee profile is probably why you'd even consider bringing the Moirax. And it shows in his stat line. His Siege Claw's got a nearly 33% wounding rate into a Land Raider. Not again counting for your rerolls and if you want a Squire's Duty and everything, just a generalist idea. And that Graviton Pulsar, the low AP, but the wounding rate into vehicles is really high at 57%, on average of like 3.5 shots. So Moirax does have a role. I feel like you're running Grav Pulsar and the Melee Claw. That's like the efficient all-rounder, can fire vehicles, can destroy elite troops pretty easy. I feel like that's the way to run them. Okay, so that's the 3 Armigers. They definitely have different roles. The Warglaive, you want to run them, a lot of them, because you want to brawl people. You want to get the most out of that reroll effect in our army rule. You get the reroll in the shooting and the melee, so run a lot of Warglaives, brawl in the middle board, use those powerful melters, just delete things out of existence, and use those rerolls. The Hellraven, I like them a lot. I actually run probably more than I should. Some games I run 6 of them, just to make my opponent mad. Really good, consistent shooting. They feel like general purpose. They've got great range on them. They can really cross-board people with them. Every time they fail a save, you punish them with flat 3 damage. And then the Moirax. I'm using more of them. I'm experimenting with them. I've got 6 of them as well, magnetized. I only run them with melee. I always run a claw, because why would I pass up that huge damage output? I kind of run them with the Warglaive or as a replacement, as like an experiment, because they're kind of doing the same thing, short range, medium range shooting, hard hitting melee. So I want to try that in that field. Like if I've got 10 points to spare, I might upgrade a Warglaive into a Moirax to see how I go. But there's definitely no question. Warglaive #1 knight by far, backed up with the Hellraven, and the Moirax, give it a go, see how you're feeling, a bit spicy. Alright, that's my first video in 2 years, and it's Warhammer. I am still doing Magic, and I will do my next video Magic. The Magic that brought me back to the channel, I'm going to do that one. But I'm going to keep covering Magic, I'm going to keep covering Warhammer. A lot's happened in 2 years. A lot has happened. Alright, thank you guys. I don't know what I used to say. I guess just goodbye. Have a good one.